Good morning once again. I'm Asim Derita from Center for Constitutional Governance. I'll follow the list of participants so that you unmute, explain what you do and your address. Okadapao.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Civic Internet. I'm the board vice chairperson of Telegon Foundation for People with Advocacy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ivan. Aisha Nalwisa. Atieno Winfred. Ben Chaine.
Morning, everyone. My name is Chaine Ben, Accountant, Center for Constitutional Governance.
Thank you. Atungu Lillian. Please go ahead. Okay, I think we lost her. Busiku Swaibu.
Good morning, everyone. Busiku
morning.
Swaibu is my name. I work with the Islamic University in Uganda Radio, that's IUIU, based in Mbale, and I also happen to be the chairperson for the youth Uganda Red Cross Society here in Mbale City. Thank you.
Thank you, Swaibu. Busowozi Brian. Epoatre Migio.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Epoatre Migio, under local government.
Frederick Echeku.
Good morning, all. My name is Frederick Echeku, and I'm from Uganda Youth Alliance. I am happy to be here to learn and engage. Thank you.
Thank you, Frederick. Helen Muhindo.
Good morning, everyone. Helen Muhindo is my name, a student at Makerere University, School of Public Health. Thank you.
Thank you. Imwangan Henry. European. Judith Atim.
Thank you very much, Rita. Good morning to you all. My name is Judith Atim. I'm the head of programs here at the Center for Constitutional Governance. And also for today's program, I will be your moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Kampala Analytica. I think that's Chris Okidi.
Yes, thank you, Rita. My name is Christopher Okidi from Kampala Analytica. Is happy as Kampala Analytica to be part of this partnership of the CCG and the Recipe project. So as Kampala Analytica, we always come in some training reflections that we share. Some of these platforms. Thank you. So I will be facilitator in one or two of the sessions of today. Thank you.
Thank you. Kwaga Juliet. Monica.
Morning, everyone. Baba's Monica CCG. Thank you.
Thank you. Museruka Kennedy.
Morning, everyone. I'm by the name of Sekura Kennedy, and I'm from LAPSNet, but currently I am a student at Road Development Center, Mbale campus. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Mutama Betty Mudua. Nabanja Mariam. Namaloba Helen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Namalova Helen, Business Development at Airtel Uganda. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Natasha Kaitesi.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Natasha Kaitesi, and I work with CCG.
Good morning.
Thank you, Natasha. Nega Madrin.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nega Madri at Center for Constitutional Governance.
Thank you, Madrin. I see Helen Europea has and Robert Nyagatum.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm called Robert Nyangatum. I work with Village Enterprise here in Amuria, and I'm so excited to be in the engagement team. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you. Let's hear from Sharon. Sharon with E, or Namanda Gloria. And then we conclude these introductions with Tweed.
Hello. Hello, good morning. My name is Sharon and I'm happy to be here.
Hello, Tweed Francis, we didn't hear you.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Mr. Francis. I'm a social media influencer from Corners District. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. The people using Infinix Hot 10, Techno, if you could rename. I'm looking at the chat box. Helen Muhindo, student of public health at Makerere. There's Namaloba Helen from Airtel, George Katumba from Hoodip, Mtama Betty from Bugisu NGO Forum Mbale, Irupia Helen, MTN Uganda, Nalweiso Aisha from Women in Technology and a computer science student, Marion Kiai, fourth year student at Muni University, Bwambale Joachim, journalist in Kasese. Someone else is from nursing science. And finally, Busobozi Brian from Educate for Portal as a mentor. Thank you so much for the introductions. And now that we have a picture of finally Atieno Winfred, a student at Busitema University. Thank you so much for the introductions, and I will hand over this. Namgera Irene from MAST and Namlondo Aisha at LDC. I will hand over to Judith Atim to carry on with this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rita. I hope I'm audible enough to everyone. I dropped off momentarily a few minutes ago, but I'm back. Like I said, my name is Judith Atim. I'm the head of programs here at CCG. And for this training, I am your moderator for today. First of all, thank you for all of you for choosing to be here with us. I hope it's going to be worthwhile. So basically, this training, it's an online training on digital rights and online advocacy. And we're implementing this as an activity under the Recipe project. Recipe stands for Recentering the Civic Internet through Partner Engagement. And this project is supported by Oxfam, represented today by Mr. Hood Lubowa, who will be joining us at some point in time. We do have some hashtags that I would implore you to push on all your social media platforms so that this is not just a conversation we're having online, but also the lessons that you're picking. If something stands out for you today in the discussions or the facilitations we're going to have, kindly tweet or go on Facebook. The hashtag is, we have two hashtags we are pushing. Rita, I'll ask Rita to also share it in the chat so that you can actually see the spelling. The first one is hashtag Recipe Project, and the other one is hashtag Digital Rights UG. Would encourage you to use both on your platforms when we're having this discussion. But also at the end of today's training, I would request that you provide your feedback in terms of what you have learned and how you expect to implement or use this knowledge going forward in whatever else you're doing. Those are important feedback. That's important feedback that we would like to get from you. So today you'll have two facilitators. One has already introduced himself, Mr. Chris Okidi, who's from Kampala Analytica. And your other facilitator is Dr. Charles Tolit Atia, who will be coming in after Chris. Chris will take you through three modules. The first one is Introduction to Digital Rights, where he'll provide an overview of digital rights. He'll also talk about the importance of digital rights in the digital age. Module 2 will focus on online freedom of expression. And under this, he'll be taking you also through an overview of online freedom of expression, as well as challenges to online freedom of expression, such as censorship, hate speech, online harassment, and so many others. And the last module that will be handled by Chris will be online privacy and data protection. Dr. Charles Tollett will handle two modules, online advocacy strategies, and the other one on digital security and safety. I do hope you will be attentive and pay attention, but also this is an interactive session. So feel free to put your hands up when you want to say, make a contribution or ask a question. Rita will be in the back end. She will be helping to identify who wants to speak, and she will, of course, mention your name and you'll contribute to the discussion today. I think I'll end here. And then I'll now invite Chris to come on board and take us through the first module. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judith. I hope I can be heard.
Yes, sir. Yes.
You're loud and clear, Chris.
Thank you. Okay. Usually, I just want us to, my role is to just lead the discussion, provoke our minds, and then make a case for the fact that what we are doing is reality, and make us reason together and accept that these are our present realities, confront us, and so how do we reason together to find a way forward so that our experiences with the internet does not turn out to be disastrous. So I am supposed to talk about, give an overview of digital rights and the importance of digital rights in the digital age. And I would think that maybe we would start the other way. We first of all understand what the digital age is and what digital rights does the digital age bring. And then we can now go into these other principles. First, we need to accept that digital age, we live in a digital reality where most of our interactions, whether by way of attending meetings like today, we are actually using a facility called Zoom to connect. Many of us, others are appearing from IU, others are appearing from Fort Portal, but we are through the aid of this digital platform. So what that means is that we live in a digital reality. Even many people do their transactions digitally, buy books on Amazon, buy services or transact on eBay. Others who play games, like gamers. So playing games, people bet line. Politically, people are also pushing political hashtags, Twitter, social media. So there is a digital reality that we live in. And all these various interactions is what many of us and many others and all of us who advocate for the civic internet and the fact that you even see civic engagements happening on Twitter. So the fact that the civic sphere is now digital that is the digital age that we finally confront. And so that means that in terms of approach, how we approach these things, we also need to approach it in a way that we do not neglect aspects of our rights. So that therefore now brings us to the fundamental question that what are digital rights? Now, these are rights that and how are digital rights evolved over time. So like I have told you, when you look at all these interactions, your economic interactions, your political interactions, your civic engagement online, all these ecosystem brings in a dispensation where we need to engage on rights. So digital rights are therefore human rights. First of all, the ideas of human rights in its very essence and transporting them to the region, to the digital scheme and sphere. The consciousness that individuals have rights has been part of human civilization for a long time. And that even when society changes from one point to another, the Industrial Revolution, when there was in the Industrial Revolution and machines, you also saw aspects of new rights emerging, like the rights to form trade unions, entire aspect of employment law, which govern industrial relations between the factors that control production. So for as long as society continues to civilize and grow, there is also going to be adaptations in terms of rights. And that is why even when we talk about human rights, when in the context of digital modernity and our digital reality, call these now digital rights. Those rights that safeguard us from the dangers of the civic spheres that pervade most of our lives. So I now want to, I hope we are okay with that context. Can I get some feedback?
We're clear. We're clear.
Yeah, or any question on that matter before maybe I just proceed to the principles of digital rights? Because I wanted us to, I just wanted to make a case. I wanted to make a case that that why we should be concerned about the civic internet is because most of our lives happen in the internet in various aspects. We have an entire digital economy which happens in the internet. You find online payments are happening, e-commerce is happening. On the political spectrum, you find that we're engaging on online activism on the internet through various social media platforms. And then also on the social entertainment aspects of it, we have people who also use online platforms for their entertainment purposes, like betting, you know. So it is a reality that we live in. So if it is a reality that we live in, it is high time needed to start conversations around digital rights. What digital rights are is essentially human rights transported within the digital context. So if that is okay with us, I proceed now to talk about what exactly are these digital rights. Usually, for me, I would like to have an approach of, when I'm talking about digital rights, I would want us to first of all look at human rights traditionally, the way we look at them, that they are civil political rights. Then there are also other socioeconomic rights, cultural rights that come in. And when we look at those particular aspects, then you would actually find that under civic political rights, you now begin to look at aspects such as freedom of expression, which are the rights to express oneself mind freely without censorship or retribution. For example, if you're an activist rights defender who uses social media, Twitter as your platforms, pushing up your online advocacy, you should actually, the fundamental principle of digital rights is that you should have the right that you should enjoy that freedom of expression online without any censorship or fear of retribution. That is a principle of digital rights. And once that is there, then we shall enjoy the digital space. As to whether that right and freedom is enjoyed in Uganda, I do not want to go so much deep into that. But then I just want to just say that your guess may be as good as mine. Because for me, I think the digital policies, laws in Uganda are there to facilitate digital safety and interaction. Of course, there are also some other gaps, but for Uganda, some of these rights may sometimes not be absolute. That may also be judgmental. But that is a fundamental civic internet rule, that there should be freedom of expression. And the next should actually be the right to privacy, which is the right to control one's personal data and protect it from unauthorized access and abuse. Now, and like I told you, even when you look into traditional human rights, you look at Chapter 4 of the Ugandan Constitution, you'll actually find rights to privacy. But remember that also in the digital age, fundamental right to privacy, like we actually say, human rights are actually, human rights also evolve with civilization. So you can actually see that even as we talk about the internet age, there's a fundamental civic political rights, which is the right to your privacy, the right of the autonomy over your personal data and protecting your personal data from unauthorized use. Now, I think it is also important for me to clarify why data is, why this conversation around data is important. Because we engage on the internet, we log in our banking details, we log in several details, which becomes, even our own interaction becomes part of the internet data. And data nowadays, you've had several people talk about it as the new. So meaning there are also potential data breaches, unauthorized data sales, and that is why the questions around privacy of data comes in. Because when you render your data to Facebook, they have your data. When you click a like, you've actually heard about people being paid for commercializing their content on the internet. Now, and many people may be asking, how does that work? How that works is that if, for example, I have a Facebook page which is very popular, and I keep pushing particular content and people keep liking. Now that liking is a data gathering process which becomes part of this of the data system. It's that data input of a particular data company which provides for you that particular service, like maybe Gmail, Google, Twitter, Facebook. Now that data is commercialized, and that's why you hear that some of the richest companies in the world are the FANG group, which is Facebook, Alphabet, Nvidia, and Google, which are data firms. So because of this entire data ecosystem and business, and some of this data is rendered freely, and so that is why conversations around data protection and privacy are very important. And usually people refer to the European Union GDPR data regulations, which, because I think Europe and European Union has really been outliers in terms of understanding, in terms of actually regulating emerging technologies and the entire digital sphere, especially coming up with laws contributing to the jurisprudence around data privacy. But you can actually see that the conversation of online data protection is around the question of your autonomy, because your data can be manipulated to manipulate you politically. You know, you can be manipulated politically by data, and that is how you've actually seen political consulting groups like Cambridge Analytica, Bell Pottinger work to manipulate data and electoral outcomes. Countries like America, countries like Kenya, countries like South Africa. So that kind of data uses, which can potentially roll back on democracy. And once democracy rolls back, then individual autonomy, which usually thrives in a democracy, also roll back. And then the internet which should actually be an instrument for good, has been converted into an instrument to harm society. So that is actually why civic internet conversations are very important, and how they intersect with these particular aspects of rights. Sometimes I also sit back and reflect and say, yeah, I think the way CCG Oxfam frames it to say the civic internet, because sometimes when I'm also trying to reflect on content, I also say that how does the concept of civic internet and these digital rights intersect in the form of the training content that we deliver. And that is how sometimes I find the intersection, find the interesting bits that I also feel like it's worth emphasizing when we convene in these reflective spaces. And then also, there are several rights you shouldn't be discriminated against online. These are, first of all, principles of human rights generally, that you even find in Chapter 4 of our Constitution, freedom, non-discrimination principles. No one should discriminate on you against gender. You shouldn't be targeted because of your gender, because of your race, because of your disability. Yeah, the internet should be a fair space for all of us, should be an equalizer. That because some of the social media platforms were actually generated to bridge people, to bridge aspects of information, to democratize information. When you go to Facebook, for example, I don't know how you people use Facebook. I know some people just scroll, but me, sometimes you find me in the inner deck of Facebook, trying to fact checking. When they say, oh, Aaron was granted bail, was he being granted bail or not? Sometimes misinformation. Some of these, when information is democratized, there's also misinformation. So sometimes I just go to Facebook and use PESA check and some fact checking. See? And then you also find that some of these platforms are also very important in terms of fact checking information. So sometimes information is also misleading, but these conversations are important. So, and then also your security, because a lot of political conversations happen on the internet and several other engagements. Yeah, you can be a target of online crime threats, surveillance, I don't want to speak so much about surveillance, but as a reality, what we need to understand is that also within the digital context, there are other people who also do digital surveillance on what is happening, what are they saying, where, yeah, trying to use digital technologies also to try to monitor what citizens are saying, which creates some threats to the internet, which is of course a data breach, because privacy is already a key principle of the internet. So, and then also cyber crimes, threats, many things can happen for women, and not only women, because I think let's also run away from beginning to frame gender in terms of women only. But what also happens is although we need to also appreciate the fact that women suffer more gender-related violence, that's a reality also. But there is also what we call gender-based, technology gender-based violence, which are also things that happen in our society. And those are also very important areas where we as civic actors within the digital economy and space, we need to voice our concerns about. So, but the general principle of the internet is that it's freedom. You have your rights to security, right to protection, and that is why also doing analysis of state laws coming up as groups to push, advocate for better internet governance and digital safety in the country is important. And these are conversations that civil society should start. And then also access to information. You have the right to access to information, and yeah, without online restrictions. But of course, this is not. This is the principle. You have, in terms of reality, you have your experience. For example, access to information. How easy is it to access information without restriction? Yeah, so people may have their varied interpretation and experiences with them, but I think what is more important here is to emphasize the fact that that digital rights. So when I don't want us to think we are discussing atomic physics. What I want us to understand is that we are the same human rights as we know them, are the same principles of human rights as apply to us in our daily experience. Digital modality has become a reality. I am sure many of you will agree with me that the digital age or the digital experience or digital life is something which is our present reality. So maybe let me pause. Judith, can I pause there and then take some questions? I continue just to ensure that we touch base with our fellow participants. We are reasoning together.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, Chris. I think it's okay. Guys, feel free. Like I said earlier, this is a conversation we're having. It's not a traditional classroom session where you have a teacher speaking and the rest of you just taking notes and listening. Kindly interact. If you have a comment to make, if you have a question, or even if you want to contribute and just add something more to the discussion, feel free and just put your hands up. Rita is there looking around to see whose hands are up so that we can actually mention your name, read out your name and you contribute. I don't know, Rita, if you can see anyone on your end.
No, there is none at the moment.
Okay. Does anyone have something to contribute, guys? You can also just post it somewhere in the chat room, and we can also read it out.
Thanks so much. Robert Nyangatum from Amuria. Yeah, thanks so much for your presentation. It's really interesting. Mine is an inquiry on the misinformation. Well aware that digital rights are human rights as well, but my request is, how do we handle the misinformation, and is there anything that can be done to guide us from getting the misinformation from various social media platforms that may not really be authentic? Is there anything that can support us as a team here? Thank you.
Okay. Any Okay. Yeah, I think Robert, right? I think, Robert, that is now going to be the second aspect of the conversation that we are going to engage in, because we have to also explore aspects around online freedom of expression extensively, beyond the concept of civic as political aspects of the digital civic rights. So we have to explore more on freedom of expression online, and then where information democracy in the digital sphere applies. And then we also look at aspects of censorship, hate speech, and then we delve deeply on aspects of mis and disinformation. Yeah, which I think your questions are also very valid and good transition for us to enter that particular landscape. Now, let us beyond. Let us now look
Chris,
at freedom. Sorry.
the few comments from the chat box. There's someone asking, thank you for the presentation. I didn't know that liking gathers commercialized data. My question is, where does the expired data go? Thank you. That was from Mutana Betty Mudawa. Where does expired data go? Did you hear that question?
Yes, Rita.
Hear the question. Mutana was asking that where does expired data go? And she also didn't know that liking gathers commercialized data.
Okay. So Betty, every aspects of digital engagement internet is actually an aspect of rendering data. For example, if you want to profile me to Kidi Christopher, you'll actually, I'll come to the example phone later. But if, for example, you want to profile me as Okidi Christopher, you will see what I have liked. If, for example, I am liking Bobby Wine's post more times than I am liking Museveni's posts, that will actually, it means I will have actually voluntarily rendered data that I am actually are more aligned to Bobi Wine than I am aligned to Museveni, or maybe I am more aligned to Museveni than I am aligned to Bobi Wine. So all those are data. All those digital interactions are aspects of rendering data. So just know that as you're using the internet, you're also rendering data. And most sites actually even have cookies that you just go like the cookies. When they see their cookies, like them, and then all data becomes cookies. They have algorithms that mine your data to get you out. But now when your data has been gotten, the question then is now how that data is used. And that is why, like I said earlier on, institutions like European Union have gone far ahead as outliers in terms of regulating global data use. Applies even Facebook. If an EU citizen is using data, how is his data protected? Because remember that those data aspects, and this is very important. I think Betty's question is very important to transition me into touching deeply into online speech, and then we go into Robert's question on misinformation. Now that data is solved. It's actually solved. There's an entire digital economy that operates on data. Those data are also used to, because technologies like artificial intelligence, which are some of the key emerging technologies underlining, headlining the fourth industrial revolution, uses data. So the more, because they are actually taught to have human-like experiences. So meaning that the more human data that is gathered and fed to those technologies, more better they will be able to assist humanities, like artificial intelligence. So that is why data is very important business. But the idea that that freedom of speech is important is because of the ideas of safeguarding democracy. Because if we have internet, we have Twitter, all these should actually be should be promoted to the aspects of democracy that we call digital democracy, where citizens can hold leaders accountable using digital spaces, Twitter, internet, various platforms. To all and that is what we call the civic internet. And that those particular emerging technologies should be able to promote democracy, holding government leaders accountable, social accountability aspects of society. And that is why also for those rights, for citizens to enjoy those rights, citizens must be protected, and an ecosystem of freedom of speech online is important. Why freedom of expression is also important is that online freedom of expression is important, is that it is supposed to promote creativity. If you're a writer, an innovator, an artist, you shouldn't be limited, because you should enjoy the freedom of expression, so that your art, so that you give your art the best. Because freedom of expression is so much a fundamental principle. In fact, I rate freedom of expression above every other freedom, because it is to think, the freedom to create, the freedom to innovate, the freedom to express yourself is such a private. So when we are now looking at freedom, that creativity is important, and then access to information. Information is also very fundamental. And I think also this is now where we talk about information democracy. And then this is where Robert's question comes in. Information integrity in the digital age is also important. Because, for example, now with the information democracy that the internet brings, that these digital technologies bring, there is also bound to be misinformation, disinformation, and also these technologies like artificial intelligence, which are built, technologies like artificial intelligence, which are built, can also be abused and manipulated to provide deep fakes, where they create videos of things that do not exist, and then they are circulated, then they mislead the public. So, meaning that information integrity is fundamental to the overall objective of access to information. I earlier on said that we can also use some of these digital technologies to fact check. For example, I don't know how many of you use information, because politically some people may circulate propaganda and say something which may not be right, but you have the digital fact checking tools. That's why platforms like Facebook have what is called third-party fact checking, which anybody can actually access. Like when you see someone has posted something, you do know you can actually click Facebook and then subject it to third-party checking? Or have you, for example, read some of the digital privacy or the policies of Facebook? Do you know what they talk about circulating misleading information? Because, by the way, when you look at Facebook, in their explanation of what Facebook is, they will actually tell you that for us, we started this platform to connect people. It initially started to connect students at where they studied, of course, Harvard, but it became a global connecting platform. And they even stated with them that information integrity is key. And that is why they have those aspects of third-party checks, where you can go and cross-check information. You can report to Facebook if you think a particular information is misleading, is misinformation, is disinformation, is a deep fake, and then you follow them, take action. It is also important to understand some of but what I am trying to emphasize is that you can engage information to fact checking. Like, for example, we are going into election, and during election time, there is a lot of propaganda and information manipulation. You see? So if you're a civic actor, what do you, for example, intend to do to ensure that, first of all, you consume the right information which is, which means you also need to also understand your own rights in terms of how do you cross-reference information, how do you fact-check information. That's why I'm saying that beyond using some of the social media platforms, their platforms also have tools which can help you do third-party check to ensure that, first, the information that you circulate is information that is fact-checked. Two, you can help your nearby community with that information and say this is the right information. So those are some aspects of fact-checking. So what, therefore, are some of the challenges that we face when we engage online? Some of the inhibitions to our freedom of expression online, government censorship, and then also sometimes the corporations behind these digital platforms like Meta, Facebook. Yeah, sometimes also cultural challenges. Now, because these corporations are so important, because they have assumed a very important role of gatekeeping information. Because sometimes even when you report, like let me share my personal experience in a few minutes. Like there was a time when some Facebook page kept on posting a distorted picture of a particular political personality in Uganda. With they make their mouth become bigger, like making the photo become so disgusting. And then they keep posting it, of course, with the intention to send hateful speech about that particular position, political figure. So I kept on reporting to Meta. I would go and click and report and say, this photo here is harmful, this photo. But Facebook keeps on, or Meta keeps on responding. We have looked at your, we have reviewed your report, and we find there's no there's no harmful content here. So you can actually see that sometimes even beyond government censorship, like government sometimes during election clamps down the internet, but even beyond government clamp down of the internet, you also have to deal with corporations in terms of what they define as harmful content. So that is then, of course, the aspects of surveillance that we keep talking about, where states use more advanced digital technologies to surveil on their citizens. In Uganda, usually when this conversation happens, people are talking about Israeli technology. Yeah, that there are technologies that is used to listen to citizens and what citizens are saying, which definitely rolls back the entire freedom of expression. Yeah, then hate speech. Now, this is interesting. Hate speech. We know how deliberately packaged harmful information that tries to target a particular people can cause harm. Like before we even look beyond this, because I want to use the examples of what's happening in the Horn of Africa to maybe highlight for us more on these particular aspects. But even before we talk about digital media and digital social media platforms, we know that media in Africa, media has also been on the side of promoting harmful information that has caused conflicts. Part of the role of radios like the Mille Collines in Rwanda, which was at the center of passing information that led to the genocide in Rwanda. So sometimes hateful information or hate speech, which is targeted at particular voices, marginalized groups, maybe marginalized groups or particular identities, can cause conflicts in societies. You've seen how digital tools. Let us look at the Horn of Africa. You've seen how digital technologies has been used to promote terrorism, where the Islamic Al-Shabaab group uses platforms like YouTube to promote their propaganda, give their explanation, and then lure back even people may have already escaped the hostility into other countries to go back and enlist into the Al-Shabaab group, believing the Al-Shabaab propaganda. And then also in contexts where there's too much identity politics, you find that hate speech comes on. In Ethiopia, for example, used social media platforms to promote hate speech, targeting particular ethnic groups. And then we saw how there's been area of
Chris, there are
even
more
in
questions.
Sorry?
There are more questions. Someone would like to know more about technology, gender-based violence, and then more about digital literacy in line with safeguarding policy. Yeah, so I think as you talk about that, you can also highlight more about digital gender-based violence and then safeguarding. Chris, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, so I was saying that I'll ensure I touch on those particular areas as well, but also, yeah, but we understand that while we use the internet, we also individual responsibility is also important. So while we use the internet, I see someone is complaining that I keep breaking. Am I clear now?
Yes, you're clear.
Yes. Okay, so okay, thank you. The person has confirmed. Okay, so what I'm saying is that as we use the internet, we also understand that rights also come with responsibilities. And so we are also responsible to ourselves and the broader society to ensure that the information we roll out is information that is accurate, and then also information that is not harmful, not hateful. Yeah, because sometimes political context. Okay. I hope my voice is clear. Someone is complaining that my voice was low. Okay, so but what is so important is that sometimes we, in our interactions with the internet, whether it is our political interaction with the internet, sometimes our interactions can be charged, sometimes they may take particular direction, like in Uganda where there are very many particular interests groups. Yeah, so we just need to ensure that we have the integrity roll out, also have personal responsibility to sieve out the information we get, ensure that it's fact-checked, and we are not consuming harmful propaganda. I talked about earlier on about misinformation, but then, and someone is asking, how do we ensure that we are safe? I think that was the question. Yeah, that is why I'm saying that personal responsibility is very important. When you're using the internet, ensure that you're using, first of all, it starts even from the choice of information you use. If you're, for example, trying to engage in a very sensitive discussion, then you may also need to understand which internet connection you're using. Are you on a public internet space, on a public Wi-Fi, which can be accessed by state authorities? They are subject to state surveillance. See, so it is important to talk about those rights, but also when we put them into the practical aspects of your daily aspect. That's why I think the questions you ask are very important. Because you, at the end of it all, beyond these particular theories, you want to see how does this apply to your personal life. So, yeah, that is actually why it is important. Now, ensure that you're first of all secure with your choice of internet. You have secure communication. And then also encrypt your online communication to protect anonymity. So
Chris,
encryption.
we lost you when you said ensure. Please repeat.
Yeah, so okay, what I'm trying to say is that it is very important to put these things in our practical aspects of life, beyond these theories we talk about. Some of these questions also want us to address the practical realities of these digital technologies to my life. For example, if you're engaging in digital advocacy against ECO project, construction of that oil project from Hoima to, I don't know, is it Port Tanga? I think people within the climate space understand it very well. So if you're going to engage in such a public
Chris,
sensitive, sorry?
You are breaking, so lost part of that submission.
Okay, so what I am saying is that if you are an online activist and you are engaging online in digital advocacy, and you also want to ensure your personal security so that your freedom of speech is not infringed upon, then the first responsibility is yourself, what we call self-help, digital safety and security. The first is your choice of, because you're now engaging, for example, in an active advocacy on a particular issue which is sensitive. So which internet are you using? Ensure that you're not using the insecure internet. So that is a personal responsibility. So once you ensure, and then ensure that you encrypt your communication, ensure that your choice of networking, if for example you're building a social movement network or you're trying to build up a group, you, instead of using WhatsApp, you may say maybe Signal is better. See, so your choice also sometimes determines your security, and that is what we call self-help strategy. And then also, our role is also to ensure that we advocate for a safe and secure online landscape. That all these emerging technologies are coming to change the way we are going to communicate, interact with each other. There's going to be information, misinformation. There's going to be, first of all, genuine information. The information landscape is even going to be more fluid in terms of mis and disinformation. So then what do we do? And that is why some of these conversations are important in terms of beginning to shape us and start to see our individual responsibility to advocate for the promotion of a safe online space, which we can first of all do as citizens in our own spaces where we can do them, but then also we can come together, yet an agenda, a favorable policy landscape. And then, of course, when we are using the internet, we are some of these digital platforms, we also need to fact check. I've told you about Facebook, third-party fact-checking platforms. If there's some information you find is wrong on the internet, you click report it. They will give you back a report, and then that report you will use to circulate and say, according to this PESA check, this is a misinformation about this particular issue. And these are things that we need to be doing, especially as we are going into an election season. We need to now begin to use some of these tools to ensure that we fact check and then take individual responsibility to ensure that we circulate so that useful information overcomes all these other. Yes. And then also, if you work with human rights defenders, work with groups of human rights defenders, your role is going to be to ensure there's also documentation behind instances of censorship, surveillance, and some of some malfeasance around the enjoyment of the right to the digital space. So some of these things are so many, but I think let me also touch on aspects like there is someone who was interested in technology and technology gender-based.
It was about technology and
gender-based violence. Yes, that one is very important. Yeah. First of all, even before we talk about technology, even before we entered into the digital space, modernity, there was already digital harassments happening. No, rather than there were already gender-based. First of all, gender-based violence in its traditional sense was already happening. There was actually harassments happening, some violence, intimate partner violence, abuse against individuals based on their genders, sex, and whatnot, everything. So that was already happening before we transitioned to this digital sphere where we mainly interact. So as we interact with digital technologies and all the platforms it brings, emerging tech like artificial intelligence, social media, yeah, the same aspects of harassment permeates itself within our digital interaction. Because remember, the standard rules of a computer is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So the input on the computer is what eventually comes out. So if you transmit gender harassments and what, it is what still comes out of the computer. So that the computer and the human, there's is an interaction between the human. The digital is the interaction between the human and technology, and that is so still aspects of human technology. The human flaws will find itself within the digital landscape. So like I told you, there was traditional gender-based violence. So when these digital technologies came, we now started to see them express themselves online, through online harassment, threats, intimidation on social media, cyber stalking, revenge pornography. You've that someone can take your picture of your intimate moments. Take picture of your intimate moments, and then when things go sour, when someone is heartbroken, just release the content as revenge pornography. And we've seen it happening even to celebrities like in Uganda, like music artists. We've seen leakages of their intimate moments. Actually, what we call, so many other things like online hate speech. Which examples I've given you? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris. I see Tolit Charles has joined. So after your presentation, I will
Yeah.
hand back to Judith and then to continue with the program.
Okay, so are you trying to limit my time now?
Yes, Judith will guide.
Okay, so how much more time do I have maybe so that I can see that I touch everything before I hand over to Charles?
The program was saying 10:35, but since we started a few minutes late, can we give you another 15 minutes?
How many minutes?
15.
15. So that will take me up.
Is that sufficient?
So that will take me up to what time?
Around 10:40, 43, I think.
Okay, let me just ensure that I touch on every aspect of my presentation around that time.
All right.
And then also if there are pertinent questions that are coming on the chat room, you can let me know so that
Certainly.
I also touch on them, because the goal is that I speak to what the people want. Yeah. So
Okay, just kindly proceed.
okay, so I think the question on technology, gender-based violence is so important, because we all know the psychosocial and negative consequences of those forms of harassment. They can cause emotional distress, depression, and so if we don't talk about them, then we are keeping quiet. Then we are not being each other's keeper. People can get isolated. You can even have financial consequences on employment, like if you've been discontinued from your job because of some of those aspects I'm talking about. Yeah, so it is important that we ensure that the internet does not become an aspect on mental problems. We need to protect our mental health while pursuing the internet, and that is why it is important to ensure that we ensure that we control these aspects like digital, gender-based violence. So that is very critical. Let me see if there's any particular question. So Judith, maybe you'll help me look if there are particular questions, and then
Chris, there is another question from Melvin. There's a question from Melvin.
Yes.
He said, talking about digital protection, what is a good way to avoid and protect one from phishing?
Okay. So I think let me use that question to transition to online privacy and data protection, and then the challenges, and also our own digital safety. So I think let me just use that question to transition to that point. Okay, now like I was actually saying earlier on when I was trying to respond to the question of personal responsibility, self-help, beyond self-help now. We need to look at beyond self-help, how do we leverage digital technology and digital tools? The very same digital technology, like those days when there's an antivirus, someone creates for you, they create that counter product so that it continues to become part of the business chain. So while there are digital platforms, and while there are some people who also create harmful content on digital platforms, there are also some people who are also developing products that can help protect you. So the question therefore is, how do we, okay, online data protection, which is a very critical aspect. I think that will also answer the previous question. So besides ensuring that you're using secure internet, which is not subject to suspicious activity as your personal responsibility. We also need to understand that there's actually what we call online data protection, which is actually a subject of online data protection. In Uganda, we have the Data Protection and Privacy Act, what we call the DPPA Act, which I think tries to, but the question is, what is data which is protected? Yeah, personal and sensitive information and personal data like your sexual orientation. Those are data that is definitely protected. So if you are, for example, even you, for example, can help yourself in this particular aspect. When you're filling in your records, you need to be very careful about data you put, your health data. For example, how do I even give data about my blood to a particular application? See? To a particular application that Christopher Kidi, my blood group is B. I am rendering that information. We remember that if that information is breached, it is also going to be used to sell to you products that conform to that particular blood type of yours. So you need to also so that manipulating of your sensitive information, you also have control to protect yourself from it. And then also you can maintain anonymity around certain aspects of your name. For example, if you're engaging into very, very serious online advocacy, like you remember those days there was Tom Voltaire. I don't know how many people still remember Tom Voltaire, who used the entire country. But no one, but it was not his real name. He would actually, whatever is happening in the State House. So he was a very mysterious character. So sometimes when it comes to some of this protection, you can also use anonymous information, omit. You can use a pseudonym. Even in traditional literature, books like Things Fall Apart, not Things Fall Apart. There's George Orwell's The Animal Farm, 1984. George Orwell is actually not his name. It is just his pseudonym. His real name is Eric Blair. But remember, because he was writing very sensitive political satire, he had to write pseudonyms. So people also use pseudonyms accounts to protect themselves and their personal information. Yeah, but so that kind of sensitive information. So, and then there is also another information is the history of your online behavior, all your digital, your browsing history is people. That is data. Like I said, when you like something, that data. Do something that's data. So you need to protect yourself. And then now, what about online data protection measures? Yeah, you can use. There are very many encryption, like I told you, encryption methods, converting your data into unreadable formats. Yeah, so, and then also there are certain platforms that also are secure. You would plan to use them like platforms such as Yeah, Facebook is encrypted, rather not Facebook. WhatsApp is encrypted. Signal, yeah. So, like especially people who are building social movements and what, even marketing. See, someone has created a chat, digital marketeers. So some of those leveraging on social networks, because in the civic internet, people live social digital networks, many other things, including civic engagement, including business, professional marketing, and many others. And then also the use of firewalls, blocking unauthorized access to networks and systems. So also you have to ensure that gadgets you use, you have sufficient protective firewalls. Yeah, you should also have antiviruses. I think it's just basic computer maintenance practice to have firewalls working, have basic things like antiviruses, secure your information, firewalls to ensure your network. Yeah, so you just have to ensure that digital tools also offer you, then you have sufficient firewalls. And then password. There are things like password, and just ensure that passwords are strong, unique. Your passwords have multiple factor authentication. Sometimes your fingerprint may be important, yeah. Although some people, some jokers, some people say that even men who have that spouses who have fingerprint, when they are asleep, they just pick their fingerprint. So, but what that is so important is that it shows you that digital protection is even important from home. You're not actually protecting yourself just from home, but it should be just a personal protective measure, that you have multiple factor authentication, you have working with firewalls, you have good, strong, and unique passwords, sometimes with letters mixed with some icons, even emojis are also important. You can include them. So that's the password. And also when you use a password, they use one password for all time. And that's the game. In fact, some of them. So it becomes.
We have lost you again. Please repeat.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so yeah, so what I was saying is that that digital rights are important. The importance of digital rights, by the way, and some of these things, they apply even in our lives. Like if you just have your fingerprint as your phone fingerprint, at night when you're sleeping, they will just pick your hand and put it there, and then it opens, and then they look at all your information, your chats and stuff like that. So you realize that these principles are not only apply in our macro space economics, but also in our micro household levels and our social interaction. So these are very important principles. So there are very many fact checking platforms used checking. Personally, I use Facebook, Meta, Check, but there are very many. There are other. You can even triangulate information and reach out and whatever is being shared. Yeah, and then also when you're storing your data, because how you store your data is so important. Secure, accessible, execute and access controlled. And then, so I actually think, since I have only 1 minute to conclude, if I think I can touch on everything, I think as a conclusion, let me just emphasize the fact that let us use strong and unique passwords and not guessable passwords for our own digital security. Let us have basic practices like factor authentication to add another security layer for our internet information. Let's keep following a breast website, keep softwares and browsers. We can also use VPN technologies to. In fact, there is VPN. Nowadays, VPN is in partnership with Conduit, so that you have an extra layer of protection. So knowing some of these VPNs like Peacestrong, they are partners with the Conduit, can also help. So when you use VPN, I think Tom Voltaire was using VPN when he was educating people. And then,
Chris,
yes.
we're running out of time.
Then finally, to conclude, let us also be careful what we browse online, cookies, and then also let's regularly monitor our accounts for suspicious activity. I think that one is important. So any other issues, maybe we can raise other time.
Well, okay. Thank you very much, Chris, for being so comprehensive and, of course, educating the participants. I'm sure this has been a very, very good session. Even for me, I've actually had a lot of learning. So Chris has been talking about, of course, digital rights, why they're important in the digital age. And one of the things he said as it started is, for as long as society continues to grow, also the concept of rights will continue to evolve. And since with the Civic Internet now, we have an entire digital economy, which is playing out in the internet spaces. Our transactions are digital, our activism is digital. And of course, he emphasized the need for having these continuous conversations around digital rights. Thank you very much, Chris. I hope by now, as participants, we all know how to protect ourselves online. He talked about multiple factor authentication. I think it's something that you don't have to wait even for this training to end. If you haven't actually started doing some of these things, it's important for you to actually begin doing. Again, guys, I'm emphasizing, let's tweet, let's post on our socials. Rita shared the hashtags here earlier. Recipe, hashtag recipe project, hashtag digital rights UG. At least bits and snippets of the things you're learning here today. Just share them. And you tag CCG, you tag Oxfam, you tag EU in Uganda. That will be appreciated. Dr. Tolit Charles is already with us. He had said his volume is low. He was struggling to hear people speak. Charles, I don't know if you can hear us clearly now, because your session is starting now. Dr. Charles Tolit, dear participants, Dr. Charles Tolit is our Associate Director here at CCG. Very knowledgeable in media, digital issues, law, and so many issues. Charles will be taking you through online advocacy strategies. He will give us an overview of online advocacy strategies. How do you use social media for online advocacy? How do you build online campaigns, and how do you mobilize supporters and so on? How do you engage with policymakers and influencers online? And of course, he will also take us through digital security and safety, where he'll give us an overview of that, online threats, digital security best practices, safety planning for online activists, and so on. So Dr. Charles, you're most welcome. We are here waiting to drink from your cup of wisdom.
Good morning, Judith. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, yes, Charles, you're audible. We can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I will want to start by thanking you for this opportunity. Thank your team, Judy, Rita, who are helping us be able to communicate on this facility. You know, what is interesting about this thing is that we are discussing them, but we are also doing. So it's both a think tank and a do tank, because we are already on a platform, and whatever we are doing here itself counts. Whatever we say here counts, because one thing about this era of technology in Africa is that we are in a period you'd call the fourth industrial revolution, where we are interacting with emerging technologies like this one we are using. We don't have to be in one space anymore to be able to have a conversation. And this comes with both opportunities and threats. So I am going to start by giving a brief background of what the 4IR is in terms of the emerging technologies, the opportunities and threats. And probably after my presentation, we should be able to have some few take homes. One would be that the fourth industrial emerging revolution or technologies or agenda, if you like, there's now what they're calling the Agenda 2063, is something that is here and is something that is here with us to stay. And therefore, we need to learn, we need to unlearn, we need to learn how to live, you know, within this era that is here with us. We are talking about, this is 2025, but we are talking about an agenda of 2063. The other thing that I should be able to leave the participants with, that we need to also know that African institutions, governance, and the civic space, which we are practicing in our individual institutions, whether you are doing, whether you're a civic society organization, whether you are a tech social entrepreneur, government players who are regulators by nature, whether you are a tech promoter, business, you need to learn that there are new elements to the rule of the game. The other bit that I will dwell around because of the issue of threat safety is give a tip around the legal and policy framework that that is emerging to govern and regulate this fourth industrial revolution. The other element that probably we shall have to discuss a little bit about is that the kind of landscape it's laying out. You know, what is this digital civic landscape that we are talking about, or that we interact in? Yeah, so you'll find that with the Agenda 2023, which conversation started around 2015, you know, generally underscores the transformative potential of technology and education as a fundamental pillar for Africa's long-term development. What this really means is that we have ushered ourselves into a new phenomenon. And a very quick example of this is, you recall during the COVID time, new terminologies emerged. Today in office, we talk about remote working. You know, I'm working remotely. We are now talking about Zoom conferences. We're talking about online conferences like the one we are having. We are talking about we now need to understand the concept of space and time. In the past, you know, when you'd go into a big hotel, you'd find on the wall they have put New York time, time of Tokyo, time of Nairobi, time of Entebbe. And, you know, they looked like decorations and they did not make much meaning because in our socialization, it didn't make very much sense. And P3, I think, is it P3, P6, when you start learning about the 24-hour clock, you know, the military institutions, you know, the police and all these are the ones who write and read their time in terms of 24-hour clock. Somebody tells you we shall be meeting at 15 hours. We never used to pay much attention to some of these things, but today you have to, because for instance, you need to know conversion of time. Somebody in New York can tell you we shall be meeting at 10 o'clock ET, you know, or we shall be meeting at 15 hours GMT. What does this mean? So there is that there's that translocation in both language, in both conceptualization, in both the actual physical space for interaction. Then this Agenda 2063 also envisions an innovative, technologically adept society capable of leveraging the opportunities provided in the fourth industrial revolution. So this revolution or this forward movement has come, but it comes with both opportunities and challenges. So it is important that you learn to appreciate your environment by way of scanning it, by way of properly interpreting it, and then also get to know the rules of engagement, you know. So by emphasizing technological advancement alongside a robust education system, you know, health system, industrial, you know, automation, innovation. Today we have artificial intelligence with us. All these are pivotal. They are all pivotal. They are factors towards future, you know, sustainable economic growth. People are now doing business on the internet, you know. The common ones to us today, you can now order food. You can be in the comfort of your house and you say, I want to eat KFC. And you simply just go to an app. But the questions then to ask is, what are the rules of engagement? What are the terms, you know, what are the conditions and terms? Because they will always come with conditions and terms. And you find that the more tangible ones, usually, especially if it is proactive, if it is exogenous, are the costs, because you're ordering from the net, it does not remove the physical, the feasibility of your engagement, that a product will leave point A to point B, you know. So the terms and conditions of purchase remain. The only difference is the mode. The other bit to this is that this agenda or this period will also highlight the importance of inclusiveness and equitable development. You need to know that, yes, in this new infrastructure we are engaging in, where does it leave the important questions of equity, equitability, which are interpreted as the, access. For instance, one of the things we talk about, if you're planning a meeting like this one of the questions to ask is, do all the stakeholders, does everybody who need to participate in this have access to, first of all, a gadget? If you say internet is one thing, there could be a fiber line, there could be MTN line, there could be an Airtel line in our case. But does somebody even have the gadget, first of all? Yesterday I saw the Minister of ICT, the managing director, speaking at a conference, I think in Barcelona, where I think there was an ICT symposium. And he had some good news for Uganda. He was saying that soon in Uganda, we are going to have taxes removed from low-cost phones, low-cost smartphones. This means that soon access will grow, that you'll have a wider range of people be able to afford this phone. Now, in the past, when you are discussing, say, governance issues, you would be talking about freedoms of speech, freedoms of association, freedoms of religion, freedoms. In this digital era, even freedoms of, because remember the UN already has a resolution. I don't remember the particular number of resolution. I don't know if somebody recalls, but internet access is now a right, is now recognized, is a visible right within the UN framework, particularly under the facets of inclusion. So news like this is good. So the question of affordability, the question of access are key within, this framework. So that is the kind of background we are coming from, and we are bound to stay in for a while, Africa and the other global regions. Through this transformation, Africa aims to not only to enhance its global competitiveness, but also to drive comprehensive social, economic, and industrial development across the continent, and which we are part of, So it is important that in whatever you are doing individually, you need to have this sort of background in mind, that the aspects of governance, the aspects of the frameworks of transformation now embed and include the digital element as a factor. So it's just like when you go back to factors of production, we talk about land, you're talking about capital, you're talking about labor, you're talking about, all these key factors, land. Today, the digital space has probably become the fifth or even the sixth, and probably now even one of the most important factors. So this sort of gives you an idea that this environment, this platform we are talking about, this particular factor is a very key factor in our interactions, in our strategies going forward. And that is why you find that it is important that in our interactions like this one, CCG, Oxfam, and you as the colleagues, partners, stakeholders, they find it now that it's very important that going forward, we should have conversations. That's why they are calling it the internet civic space. So what changes is not the substance. We continue to engage, for better social services. We continue to engage for better education, better health, better governance, equitable governance, representative governance. And that is the hard stuff. That is the substance. What has now changed is the form, So just to be creative, you imagine those days as young people, you're either playing a game of football or a game of netball. The rule says you're supposed to be 11 in a big pitch. But sometimes you don't make the numbers, but that does not mean that you don't play football. You can still play football 2 aside, 3 aside. You can play netball, 2 aside, 3 aside, but you maintain the rules. The rules, if a ball has gone across a certain line and it's an offside, that is an offside, So the other thing to keep in mind is that these ambitions hinge on a strong political commitment and substantial financial investment. Now, I want you to take note of these words clearly. The realization that these ambitions hinges on strong political commitment and substantial financial investments, both of which remain significant challenges. And now this is for us in civil society. This is where the tire hits the roads. This is exactly what you probably call as the turning point. The question we have been engaging with all the time is that the facets for governance are known to us, So if you're doing advocacy, you don't do advocacy for itself. Advocacy is just a means. You don't do advocacy as an end to itself. You do advocacy for something. So just to underscore this statement, if we are saying that to realize this 4th industrial revolution, to realize and enjoy the opportunities it presents, to be able to mitigate the threats it comes with, you need commitment. You need political commitment. Because remember, we are talking of political hegemony. We are living within a sovereign state. And states are governed by laws and regulations. States practice democracy and that's where the deal is. In the democracy deal, promises are made, especially say at times when a given set of rulers are seeking new appointment, new mandates. So it is these promises that we as civil society follow on behalf of the citizenry. You're like a referee. You're simply saying, look, in the other time you said you are going to increase agriculture funding by so much. So those in agriculture will be saying, look, when we look through the budget, it does not seem so. As states, we are part of international engagements, of conventions, of regional frameworks like the East African Community, the Common Trade Preferential Area, because this is where the issues come from. In the technology realm itself, there are too many. There are commitments to have access to, like I said, access to internet, low-cost internet, access to, you remember, just to flash back a bit, you remember when we had, you remember when there was that attempt to introduce the OTT tax, and then the way we mobilized around it, because we were like, look, the internet today is not only being used, because the government was making a very bogus rationale. They were saying people are using the internet just for casual conversations, to talk about their gardens, talk about their pets, talk about, you know, whatever it is. But we're like, no, the more serious case is that actually internet has given opportunity to grow business in the virtual space. And there are people who are doing this for business. And that is why up to now, the ban on the platform of Facebook in Uganda has remained a sticking issue. So when it comes to forming issues, the issues are always there, because one very key important thing in advocacy is deciding on an issue and framing it. And remember that whatever advocacy you are doing, there are clear outcomes you need to set before you even start. You could be doing an advocacy just to raise awareness around something. You know, you could be doing an advocacy for purposes of getting some action done. Could be from a local government official, and does not only have to be national. You could be a CBO operating within a given locality B. You could be in Gulu, you could be in Soroti, and maybe within your sub-county or parish, you find that all the boreholes, because if the source of water, if you don't have running water, and maybe the source of water is basically boreholes, and you find all the boreholes have broken down, and the women who particularly find themselves going to fetch these waters are going very long distances. Now, that is an issue that you can frame and tie advocacy around it. Now, how do you do that in civic space? It goes back to the same thing. How do you, once you've framed the issue, you need to communicate it. So the difference is, unlike in the past where you are writing letters, where you are sending emails, you are going to radio, you are going to do this. The advent of the fourth revolution, particularly the internet, gives you what you now call an integrated space, where you can actually do multimedia. You can tag radio, you can do TV, you can do emails, you can do posters, you can do all these things in this space. So again, my emphasis is that the substance doesn't change. Advocacy remains advocacy. The key stages, you know, identifying the issue, communicating, writing out clear objectives, communicating them, identifying stakeholders, mobilizing them around the cause, identifying the, for lack of a better word, let me use the word opponent. Who is the advocacy targeted to? Is it lower government official? Is it the minister? Is it the education officer in the district? Is it private sector? If now we are talking about internet access, if you do a scanning, for instance, in the region and you find the cost of internet in Kenya is low, in Rwanda it is low, in Congo it is low, maybe in Ethiopia, and we are in the same geographical region, then you begin to ask yourself, why should it be expensive here? That alone can be a cause. Is it a question of taxation? Sometimes you need to involve experts. You need to get a tax, you can bring in a tax expert, and these experts are always available, by the way. And you don't need to pay them because people are willing to share knowledge and skills. Sometimes it's a question of being able to go and link up with them. And the guy will tell you, look, Uganda's tax structure, this is how it is calculated. This is how they come to the figure. And this is my opinion. So you can take that expert opinion and it's what you're using. And you're saying, look, the issue is that in the region, tax is at maybe a threshold of 1.2%. And here it's at 1.5%. And we don't find a serious justification for it. So you can do all this in that internet space without necessarily undoing or fundamentally changing what the originals are. So having said that, you'll find that it is important in all this. In advocacy, the key thing, there are three key terminologies that will always come. Like I told you, there's the message, there is the duty holders or duty bearers, and then the stakeholders, the people who the issue affects. You need to make a firm preposition for them to know how to do this. But of course, having said all this, one thing that it will all boil down to is that, and I'm sure my good colleague Okidi, by the way, when I have a quarrel with him, he never mentions that I am also his mentor. But the truth is that me and Okidi have known each other a long time. And I spotted Okidi as a youth leader when he was at Gulu University, and we have had a long colleague conversation and friendship, and this is how you build stakeholders. Because, you know, talking about stakeholders, now if I started a campaign, one of the first people I would put on my list is somebody like Christopher Okidi, and I know he cannot let me down because I know the potential he has. I know he has a voice, and I know he is able to reach where I cannot reach. So there is also the issue of building coalitions. That is very also important. But now we are saying you're doing all this in an atmosphere where it's no longer the physical space. You are talking about a digital space. But truth be told, yes, you have a right to mobilize, you have a right to demand, but it comes with the responsibilities. Now, the responsibilities you bear is probably now what leads us to the element of privacy. Now, the privacy also comes from two sides. One side of the privacy is you, the person, the player. The other element of the privacy is the regulation. What regulation, what safeguards are there by the regulator? And oftentimes it's the duty bearer or the duty holder. And that is, it often turns out to be government or whether national government, local government, international agency, or regional government, or, you know. So you need to be sure of that and point it out clearly. So when it comes to privacy, privacy is both a legal but also a moral issue, moral or ethical issue. Now, issues that are moral or legal are not, issues that are moral or ethical are not necessarily legal, but the debate is narrow and sometimes they overlap. So let me try to stay with the legal. You know, there is the Uganda's digital framework or digital fourth revolution is traced, is clearly traced up to the process began, I think, around 2003. That's when we have that's when we had the first national ICT policy framework, and it aimed at guiding the sector's growth. Because, you know, like I said, a game of football, for everything you're undertaking, there must be some guidelines. So subsequent reforms, particularly the liberalization of the telecommunication sector in 2005, opened the ICT industry to private investment and competition. These efforts laid the groundwork for policies such as the National Information Technology Policy of 2011, the National E-Government Policy Framework, also 2011, the National Broadband Strategy 2018-2023. In addition, laws like the Computer Misuse Act 2011 and the creation of the National Information Technology Authority, NITA-U, all these have sought to institutionalize the governance of ICT. So this digital space we're talking about is a regulated space. But like I said, it takes two to tango. There is you, the individual, there is you, the user, and then there is the regulator, who could be a national government, it could be regional principles developed and all this. And then the other key principle around this, like I say, is that they are both what you'd call legal, but they are legal frameworks, but there are also issues of moral and ethics. I listened to Okidi in his concluding remarks. At some point, he was talking about especially was dealing with the individual. How do you protect yourself? The whole issue of passwords and all these and those technicalities. But even things as simple as self-regulation. What kind of language are you using? In terms of how much privacy, because you talk about privacy, you determine what privacy you're talking about. If I decide every meal I'm going to have, I'm going to snap and throw it on the net. My child is sick, I snap it, say which hospital, say what it is suffering from, so there sometimes you let yourself into over intrusion. You open up too much. You should open up, but sometimes you open up too much. So, and that is what privacy is about. So the one element is how do you handle your own privacy? The other bit to it is where is the intersection between you and the other users? I always like to use the highway code. If you're in a car, there are cars coming in your front, there are cars driving in your back, there are pedestrians. So you have to keep looking this side, that side, to keep safe. But also the highway codes, when you're going towards a bend, they will show you that there is a bend ahead, maybe 20 meters, 40 meters. Now, if you decide that you can take a bend at a speed of 140, which is suicidal, it is up to you. So it is the same thing with this space. If you are part of an organization, and for every little meeting you have, you power it out there, you are just being irresponsible. But there are also legal frameworks which guarantee privacy of person. The law that regulates privacy of person in Uganda is there. And we've had instances, like for instance, we've had issues with the state. Remember there was an issue, there was an attempt for government to try to find a law that can allow it to tap into people's phones. That was roundly rejected in Parliament because it's not a democratic practice. There are things like, name calling, eavesdropping. There are issues of privacy with the children, because it is you. A child is under 18 years. You need things like consent. But you find many people posting pictures of children, and without any thought about it. They are things like, objectivity, or which go down to right of consent. You've gone to a public meeting. You've taken a picture of people even without their consent. Then you come and you're flashing it on the internet, because the internet, these platforms are like a highway. You put it on Facebook, if it goes on public, everybody asks. And you see, the other thing is that even the innovators, the creators of these systems have regulations, because in any intersection, you'll be asked. You're about to put something, they ask you, you want to put it in the private, you want to put it in the public, that shows you that there is a code of conduct. So as users, most importantly, we need to learn what these codes of conduct are and what they should be. So Uganda's digital civic landscape, there's not very much. You are part of the players. You're seeing the evolutions. You're seeing some of the scandals that have come out. So there are really three things. There is the legal framework to resort to. There is self-regulation to resort to. there is just practice, practice with some decency in the way you conduct yourself. So otherwise, despite that, all these opportunities, the potential for social media, persistent digital divides, access to the internet remains unequal, with rural and economically disadvantaged populations facing high costs, inadequate infrastructure, low digital literacy. Social media platforms have also been weaponized by the state for surveillance and censorship. The Ugandan government has leveraged its control over internet infrastructure to monitor online activities, restrict access to dissenting voices, shut down social media during critical political events. You've had WhatsApp put off towards the election time or when they're reading results. We saw this in 2016, we saw it in 2021. So this is the atmosphere working in, and you need to know it, you need to appreciate it, you need to strategize. Otherwise, I think those are my contributions, Judith. I think I would like to hand over back to you.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Charles, thank you. I think for now, in the remaining minutes, we can again open the platform for a plenary. If you have questions, if you have any sharing that you want to do, please, now is the time. I think Charles has also exhaustively presented his part. So we would now like to hear from you. What are the key takeaways from today's session, from what from Chris, and what you've had? It's you would have enough time to engage, but I told him we would do so after Dr. Charles's presentation. So now I would like to hear from you. I think earlier Busiku Swaibu had seen a question or a comment or contribution that you want to make, or anyone else for that matter. We would love to hear from
Before Busiku comes in, please fill in your details in the link that has been shared on the chat box. There are particular details that you will find specified. Your contact, email address, age, every question is important. Kindly fill in as we go on with this meeting. Thanks.
All right. Hello.
Thank you, Rita. Swipe, please proceed. How are you?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation, right from Mr. Chris and even also a doctor. They are really beautiful submissions, which I'm sure that if at the end of the day we put them into consideration, we shall have an impact on our online communication. The fact that is currently we are having a number of challenges based on the way people use social media platforms the wrong way. But based on the knowledge we have received today, right from the Chris and Doctor's presentation, gives us a guide on how to be selective and well communicating to avoid getting a negative impact to the source and even also to the what the audience we are getting to disseminate to the information. Personally, I not learned how to identify or get to know the fake news, especially using Facebook. That's why I've been so sensitive as far as taking Facebook using information, and I've been using much of the X and formerly Twitter. But based on the knowledge today, I'm sure we have a takeaway. To me, I believe the fact that I'm a media personality, I'll go ahead to advocate by disseminating this information via my various programs, like what I've always done. witnessed by my brother Simon Peter, one of Center for Constitutional Governance Mbale, a project. And then my request will be that if possible, I'll request the presenters at least to share their presentations to you, the organizers. Then you in turn go ahead to email us those presentations. It needs us to take more time, knowledge today in this shorter meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Swipe. That is well noted. I'm glad that now you know what it means to engage responsibly and how to be critical with what you share online and so on. I think we have some. I don't know if we have other comments in the chat room. No, but just a reminder: kindly fill in that form that Rita just shared in the chat box. No, Simon shared it there, so kindly fill in. Musekura Kennedy.
Thank you so much for this insightful discussion. My question is to either of the panelists: how do we strike a balance in this digital era where almost everything is being determined by algorithms? Because like now, whenever you tune in on, whenever one goes online, it's like we no longer think for ourselves. Algorithms are the one that think for us. If you have been following some particular aspect, they tend to direct you in that direction. If you have, let's say, you have been reading a certain, you are a good consumer of maybe newspapers and what. Every time you tune on, algorithm determines, pumps you direct news to that direction, or maybe program that one has been following. In a way, indirectly, you find that we are no longer ourselves determine even some of the rights that we are discussing. I wish to hear our panelists in that regard, either panelist.
Okay,
thank you so much.
Kennedy, Kennedy, if I may, I haven't understood your question. How do you strike a balance between what and what? I've understood your concern about algorithms, what now
yes.
driving the content that we consume. So I didn't get the question clearly. If you could again perhaps rephrase it.
Oh, I don't know how to phrase it, but my issues, I wish to hear their comment on algorithm determining the way we we think, even the rights way that we are supposed to even in aspect of right. Yes, in the era of algorithm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Judy Master, could I respond to that one?
Please, Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't get the name again, but thanks for the question. I want to share with you my own practice. I think, by the way, and this is a misconception that many people have developed. I normally refer to it as the arrivalism of armchair thinking and a sense of laziness. Actually, for me, the whole notion of algorithm and machine learning and machine thinking has more than any other time before actually re-emphasized the need for empirical knowledge, empirical data. And empirical knowledge, just to break it down, is information you get from direct inquiry. I don't want to call it research. I just want to call it information, because you see, there is so much repeated information. And if you're a keen observer, let us take, for instance, materials generated on search engines. It is so easy to read 1, 2, 3 pieces, and you can tell that all these materials are coming from the same context and thinking. So the question for you, particularly if you're a media person or if you are planning an advocacy, research is key. And research needs to go beyond what you'd call armchair thinking. It is good to, you can do what you'd call secondary literature review on your table. But then you need to clarify some of these things. Because, for instance, let me just give an example. Supposing you read something and it says 65% of Kampala youth are now shopping in supermarkets or are now eating KFC. There are so many ways of further problematizing that issue and seek clarification. Whether is this actually happening, even just by casual observation. Sometimes you just need immediate reference. You have 5, 6 people around you, and you frame a question, but you are at a university or you sit in you're in a small town, and just ask, by the way, where do you buy your matoke? Where do you buy your bread? You'll find that. You'll find the contrast. I don't want to say what you'll find, but you'll find the contrast. For instance, this is how I consume news. I can never take a story by looking at one channel. And it is important to understand what they call philosophical thinkings or drives. Let us look at, say, foreign media. If I went to CNN has a thinking, and I know what they drive at. If I went to the BBC, it's different. If you go to Al Jazeera, it is different. So I try to go to 3, 4, 5 stations, and thank God with the digital platform of DSTV and all these other channels. And I make a contrast. And probably now this is the kind of civicness. This is the kind of civic agency we need to create to some of our stakeholders, some of our listeners, some of the people we interact with in the way of raising awareness around critical thinking. Just you cannot be comfortable just with one source. And these are things we've been doing at school when you are doing your dissertation. You had to look at a number of sources. The reason why you are looking at these sources is to try and find what are the common trails, what are the point of departures, what are the discussions. And this helps because what I'm saying and what I said initially is that the digital world has come and it has come to stay. We're talking of Agenda 2063. So how do you learn to maneuver? How do you stay afloat? How do you stay alive in this environment? I think that's what I would encourage you to do, and with any type of information.
Thank you so much. I am so grateful for that kind response.
I don't know if you had finished. I think you just went off. We lost him. Chris, would you like to come in?
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. I think the conversation, it's important. The question of algorithm is also a very valid question. Yeah, because a lot of, when we talk about the civic internet and an algorithm, that connection is very important because we know how manipulation of algorithms can lead to the problems of, in fact, when algorithms are manipulated, they can be manipulated for bad. In terms of information, it can create an echo chamber. You can always be listening to just particular information. The algorithms will bring you only a particular kind of information, a particular kind of source, which will actually put you into an echo chamber, which will require your own extra effort to liberate yourself with trying to stretch your mind beyond the digital information you get, to also look out to other sources you can cross-reference with, you can fact check with, so that you get or balanced information. So I think it should also be a digital practice that while you consume the internet, there's what the internet gives you. You should also continue to have a bibliography of your own credible information sources where you can always cross-reference with what the algorithms calls you. This is what we call self-emancipation. Self-emancipation. You can use the self-emancipation approach to the algorithm to address the question, the problems of algorithms. Now, these algorithms can also be manipulated politically. They can be helped to shape your market behaviors, your political behaviors. So I think generally, even, by the way, in academic spaces, there's a lot of conversations about
Chris, there's an
yes. Sorry? Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Someone determine hate speech. Chris, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, I was saying there is a new question from Kim Best asking how, maybe you can respond to that before you conclude.
Yeah, okay. So I was saying that it is very important that the question around the question which was asked around the question of algorithms is very valid, because the gist of internet, in fact, where the battlefield, the battlefield of internet emancipation will be on algorithms, and policies should emerge to address the use of algorithms, the deployment of algorithms, because algorithms, when negatively deployed, can first of all create a very dangerous information ecosystem, can create a very dangerous economic ecosystem, can create a very dangerous political ecosystem. So that is why that is so important. Now, so these conversations should actually continue, and we should always be approaching them with open minds. And then on the question of how do you determine hate speech? Yeah, like I said, hate speech mainly requires identity. You need to just understand that identity markers in a particular communication. When, for example, there is a speech that is fomenting hatred, intolerance, discrimination against a particular race or ethnic group, that is hate speech already. The identity marker there is race. And then if there is also speech that promotes hatred, intolerance, and discrimination over a particular religious group, so the identity marker there is religion, and so that is hate speech against the religion. And then nation of origin, sex, gender, disability. So you need the defining features there are hate speech, intolerance, discrimination against a particular identity, and then the identity marker, hate speech towards that particular. Okay, and unless there's any other question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
If anyone has any more questions, kindly proceed.
I will assume that we have all responded to the link. Please cross-check in case you have not. It's in the chat box. Please open and respond to those particulars that are requested. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, do we still have any more to say? I see a question in the chat box. Could this knowledge from Frederick? He's saying, how could this knowledge and skills be incorporated in academic programs like computing and IT? Dr. Charles, you could actually respond to this, or Chris.
Yes, Judy, can you just repeat that?
Charles, there is a new message asking, I don't know if you're able to see your chat box. How could this knowledge and skills be incorporated in academic programs?
Okay. Now, there are two ways. Of course, academic programs really depend on the kind of courses somebody is teaching. And I know there are many institutions that are teaching teaching ICT and all these digital disciplines, cyber, those courses related to technologies. But I think like we're more by and by, what you're now talking about is that I seem to see, and this is a thought I've had for a while, that there is an emerging notion of the social sciences that is beginning to make traction with technology. And also this is also not new, because if you talked to students, scholars of technologies, you will find that in many technological projects, at a certain point, they develop what you'd call a social unit, a social affairs unit, which sometimes which is the only way, for instance, to measure how people have welcomed a particular technology, how they are interacting with it, how social-cultural factors, anthropological exposure, impact on technologies. Out there, I know that these discussions have begun. You find in a university, they can set up what you'd call a multidisciplinary research center or think tank, where technologists or innovators come and begin to have conversation with social scientists, with lawyers, with policy people, and begin to ask fundamental questions of how these technologies are being appreciated, how they are being used, the challenges they are creating. And I think this is the direction that that institutions of learning need to take. Unfortunately, when we talk about innovations in learning, or every time you evoke the word innovation, our minds quickly run to hard science. We are thinking about manufacturing, we're thinking about technology, we are thinking about this, we're thinking about that. But there are innovations in the social sciences. And I think these are the kind of innovations. We now need to have conversations around technological ethics, because most of the ethics that were developed in the past were around the social sciences, conduct, behavior, religion. But with science now, we are living in a science age. We are now living science. We are eating science. So I think you are right. You are spot on to ask about this. Directly to respond, yes, there's opportunity to integrate this into academia. The question then is the how, and the how is where we need a bit of thinking. But like I told you, I know that there are study centers that are created around certain disciplines to give interdisciplinary interface. Even the course units, now should move away. For instance, an innovator. You can produce something, but at the end of the day, you get to a point you now need to market it. So instead of going to look for a marketeer, you need to learn elements of marketing. As an innovator, there are issues of patents, there are issues of copyrights. So you now need to integrate elements of law, principles of law, and all that. So, but when you look at these course contents at the moment, they are very thin in these areas of integration. And I think you're right. We maybe we now need another session to try to discuss what you'd call plurality, the plurality of technology, the plurality of law, the plurality of policies, and going back to the basic things, because we're really talking about this civic space. We're talking about civility. We engage in this thing. How does it hold us, in a manner where we are conducting ourselves with due respect? We are holding ethical questions. We are not creating problems for each other. Thanks. I don't know whether that answers you.
Thank you, Dr. Charles. I think you've captured it so well. One of the things I've taken away from your discussion is that we should not be passive consumers of online content. We have to be critical of how we engage. We have to be discerning of the content that we interact with in digital spaces. And I think that was in response to Kennedy's concern about algorithms and how they're now doing the thinking for us. Thank you. Let us, I'm told we have Mr. Hood Lubowa from Oxfam. Hood is the focal point for this recipe project. And if we don't have any further questions right now, I would invite you, Mr. Hood Lubowa, to just say a few words as we close today's training.
Yes, thank you, Judith. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, you're loud and clear.
It's interesting that someone talked about algorithms, and you've closed with that point. The US has an act called the Algorithmic Accountability Act. It's basically an act to hold duty bearers or gatekeepers accountable for the different biases that might be brought onto the consumers of digital products by algorithms, So while we celebrate some technologies and some innovations, we know that some challenges are really quite many. Some are glaring at us so sternly. So at a time where we are seeing different technological advancements and different technologies that have many that have already reached our continent, things that have to do with the Internet of Things, and so many other innovations that are being consumed by the African population, and particularly in Uganda, these discussions become very crucial to us. So as we conclude today's discussions, it is important for us to note that it is crucial to emphasize that digital rights, freedom of expression, online privacy, and data protection are foundational to a free and just society. And therefore, upholding these principles ensures that individuals and different entities can engage online, without fear of censorship, exploitation, or harm. And so, in a time where these digital spaces are integral to our everyday life, safeguarding them is quite paramount, and it is our collective responsibility to advocate for stronger protections, awareness, and regulations that ensure that everyone's online experiences remain secure, private, and free. So I want to thank all the participants in today's training, and I want to thank all the trainers in today's training for having taken us through and for having assured that they have added a stone onto our knowledge, a knowledge that can really contribute in transforming our digital economies. I want to thank you all and assure you that as Oxfam and our partners, CCG, and us being co-funded by the European Union, we remain committed to ensuring that we have safe and free and inclusive digital spaces that are working for everyone individually or as communities. So thank you, and I hope to engage with you any other time when you're utilizing this knowledge in your different spaces, because then it will be very important that all this knowledge is cascaded onto other individuals and other community members. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a nice time.
Thank you, Hood. We do appreciate you sincerely for your input and for always making time to join us when we're having these trainings and these discussions on digital rights. Like I said earlier, participants, I had suggested that at the end of the training, kindly share with us some feedback, just what you think about the training that you've had, and how your knowledge and understanding has changed or not. It's very important for us to understand. But I have some feedback coming in from Bosika Swipe in the chat box. And he says he's requesting for more engagement. Otherwise, thanks to Oxfam and CCG, the meeting has been too rich for me as a media personality, as I look forward to share them with my audience through IU FM radio and my social media holders. Thank you, Swipe. Betty Mutama says, thank you. Organizers, CCG and partners, Oxfam, for the great engagement. And we look forward to having such. We would like to know what your experience has been and also how you intend to use this knowledge going forward. Thank you. Rita, I don't know if you have any further communication to share. I would ask you to please do so.
Thank you all. I realize Kim has shared feedback too, saying the training was surely amazing. I'll share with my people of Rwenzori region as a presenter. Thank you, everyone, and to all the trainers. In case you need to review or remind yourself about anything, this will be available on Civic Space TV. It's a YouTube channel. We shall also upload the training manual on our website. And please follow our social media handles: CCGA1, Civic Space TV, Oxfam in Uganda, EU in UG, and the different other digital spaces that you can interact with different information about the same. Have a nice day. It was nice having you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita, and thank you, our facilitators, Dr. Charles Tolit, Atia, and Christopher Okidi, for your insights and your time. And to all of you, our participants, we really, really appreciate you for making time and for contributing as well through your questions and comments to this training that we've had. Thank you.